It was a cold, misty evening when Sarah decided to make the long drive back home after a weekend visit to her friend's cabin in the mountains. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, and a thick fog had begun to settle in, making the winding mountain roads even more treacherous. Despite her friend's warnings to leave earlier, Sarah was confident in her driving skills and wanted to savor the last few moments in the peaceful surroundings. As she started her journey, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The road was eerily quiet, with not a single car in sight. The only sounds were the steady hum of her engine and the rhythmic swishing of the windshield wipers against the light drizzle that had begun to fall. The road twisted and turned through dense woods, the trees looming like dark sentinels on either side. Sarah kept her eyes on the road, but every now and then, she thought she saw something move just at the edge of her vision, a shadow flitting between the trees, too fast and too faint to be sure of what it was. She dismissed it as her imagination playing tricks on her in the dim light and continued driving. After about an hour of driving, Sarah realized that she hadn't seen a single sign of civilization. No road signs, no mile markers, not even a gas station. The road seemed to stretch endlessly into the foggy darkness, and the trees pressed closer, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. The uneasy feeling in her stomach grew stronger, but she brushed it off, focusing on getting home. Suddenly, her headlights caught something in the road ahead, a figure standing in the middle of the lane. Sarah slammed on the brakes, her car skidding to a stop just in time. The figure didn't move. It was a woman, dressed in a tattered white gown, her long hair hanging in wet tangled strands over her face. She stood motionless, staring at Sarah's car. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She rolled down her window slightly and called out, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman didn't respond. She just stood there, her head slowly tilting to one side, as if trying to understand what she was seeing. Unease turned to fear, and Sarah instinctively locked her doors. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. She shifted her car into reverse, intending to back away and find another route, but the woman suddenly moved, her pale hand reaching out toward the car. Panicking, Sarah floored the accelerator, swerving around the woman and speeding down the road. She glanced in her rearview mirror, expecting to see the woman receding into the distance, but there was nothing there, no sign of her at all. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Shaking, Sarah continued driving, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. She just wanted to get home, away from this nightmare. But the road seemed to go on forever, with no signs, no turns, and no end in sight. The fog thickened, swallowing the light from her headlights, and the trees grew even closer, their branches scraping against the sides of her car like skeletal hands. Just when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, she saw it, a small, run-down gas station up ahead, its lights flickering dimly in the fog. Relief washed over her as she pulled in, eager to find someone, anyone, who could help her get back to the main road. But as she stepped out of her car, she realized that something was terribly wrong. The gas station looked abandoned, the windows shattered, and the pumps rusted and overgrown with weeds. It was as if it had been deserted for years. Then she heard it, the soft, shuffling sound of footsteps behind her. Sarah turned, her breath catching in her throat. The woman from the road was standing there, her white gown now stained with dirt and blood, her eyes hollow and dark. She was closer now, her hand outstretched, reaching for Sarah. Frozen in terror, Sarah could only watch as the woman's cold hand brushed against her arm. A chill ran through her body, and everything went black. When Sarah awoke, she was sitting in her car, parked at the side of the road. The fog had lifted, and the sun was rising over the horizon. There was no sign of the gas station, no sign of the woman, just the empty road stretching out before her. Shaken, she started the car and drove home, the eerie encounter etched in her mind. When she later recounted the story to her friends, they told her she had encountered the Phantom Highway, a ghostly stretch of road where travelers were said to vanish without a trace, lured away by the spirit of a lost soul who died there long ago. For weeks after the incident, Sarah found herself waking in the middle of the night, heart pounding, convinced that she could hear the faint rustle of footsteps outside her window or see a flash of white in the corner of her eye. She couldn't shake the feeling that the woman was still out there, waiting for her. Determined to understand what had happened, Sarah returned to the small town where her journey had begun, hoping to find answers. She asked the locals about the road and the gas station, but no one seemed to know what she was talking about. They claimed there had never been a gas station on that road, and the descriptions of the woman didn't match anyone who lived or had ever lived in the area. One elderly man, however, looked at Sarah with a knowing expression and told her the road she described was notorious for strange occurrences. "You're lucky to have made it out," he said, his voice trembling slightly. family. Not everyone does. He went on to tell her about the legend of the woman in white, a bride who had died in a car crash on her wedding night, searching endlessly for her lost groom. The old man's eyes grew distant as he spoke, as if recalling a memory long buried. They say she appears to those who are lost, and if she touches you, she'll take you with her. Sarah listened in stunned silence, realizing that her encounter was not a hallucination or a dream, but something far more sinister. She left the town quickly, vowing never to return. Even now, years later, Sarah avoids driving alone at night, especially on deserted roads. The memory of the phantom highway and the woman in white still haunts her, a constant reminder of the night she narrowly escaped becoming another lost soul, taken by the storm that never ends.